We're so into this conscious 10% of this is my life and this is the little box that I live in and this is how reality is. And we don't even realize, and I'm speaking from experience, I didn't even know the capacity of what my unconscious mind can do. It literally is limitless.
So welcome to another episode of You Must Be Out of Your Mind, and I'm Dr. Don Wood. I'm your host, and as you know, I always bring on amazing people who have some great insight to offer us on things that they do. So I've got Melissa Deally and Billie Aadmi. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and welcome to You Must Be Out of Your Mind.
Thank you so much for having us, Dawn, and I love the name of the show. A little bit about what we do together is we have an academy called Amplify Impact Academy, and our main program is called Quantum Life Mastery Skills. And it's all about the mind and being able to tap into the other 90%, the unconscious mind, which we're not taught about at school, and understanding how the conscious mind and the unconscious mind communicate with each other, work together, and tap into the higher self, where all the resources are for us to be able to fulfill our mission in this lifetime, as well as our blueprint for perfect health. And giving people access to these resources is literally giving them life skills, because these are tools that people can use as needed as they go through their life in order to do life the easy way. Billie has a beautiful easy button on her desk, and we jokingly say, if you want to do life the easy way, learn how to be in rapport with your unconscious mind. And I'll let Billie continue there.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And Dr. Don, I love the name, and it couldn't be more fitting for really what Melissa and I do, because really being out of your mind is being out of your unconscious mind. We're so into this conscious 10% of this is my life and this is the little box that I live in and this is how reality is. And we don't even realize, and I'm speaking from experience, I didn't even know the capacity of what my unconscious mind can do. It literally is limitless. I used to think, okay, yeah, it makes my heart pump and makes, my blood flow and, keeps me alive. I had no idea that it was running 95% of my life. That was the biggest wake up call for me. And I've been a police officer for 20 years. I was not really into the spiritual woo woo. It wasn't really my thing. I was very much in the 3D world. And as I started learning this, and I actually really kind of fell into this work when I met a hypnotherapist. And, hypnotherapist, that's all hypnosis is learning how to access the unconscious mind. And when she did a session with me, because I'm a very curious mind. I'm like, I always try something once. I couldn't believe how differently I felt after that one session. And I asked her, I'm like, why do I feel so different? Why do I feel things like so many things shifted? And she said, we tapped into your unconscious. What does that mean? What exactly does that mean, that you tapped into my unconscious? And as that started me down this path. And then one thing, the universe brings you what you need. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And slowly, I just kept following the breadcrumbs, led me to Melissa, who apparently, our lifetimes, we've been doing this together and we've been reconvened here. And that's how Amplify Impact Academy was born, because we realized this is something that everybody needs to know. These are life skills. It's like swimming. We always say like, oh, everybody should have these basic life skills. We think these are basic life skills. You should have an understanding of how your mind works, because once you have an understanding of it, now you can actually use it the way it was intended to, which was for you to be happy, healthy, wealthy. Not for you to be stressed and in fear and anxious all the time. First, we got to put the fire out. There are so many people living in anxiety, and they don't realize that it's your unconscious mind talking to you. It's saying, focus on what you want. Stop focusing on what you don't want over here. And let's focus on what you do want. So then we can actually go and actually get that done. Really, it is the more that we learn, the more we realize we don't know.
Yeah,
and that
so
is
true.
like lifelong, I'm just insatiable with this knowledge right now of wanting to learn what the capacity we actually have for our lives.
Well, you guys are talking my language. That's what I've been doing for a number of years. And what I discovered is that trauma is a major factor in the way our minds work. So how I got into this was really not because I wanted to become a doctor. It was because my daughter developed Crohn's when she was 13. And then she was also diagnosed with a second autoimmune disorder called idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis. And both those, so they had took out 24 inches of her intestines with the Crohn's. And then when she got the hemosiderosis, they told her that this could be a 5-year death sentence. Her lungs would start to fill up with blood. And they said, with both of those disorders, there's no cure for it, and we don't know what causes it. So they were literally zero help. All they could teach us is to live and manage and cope with it. So they had her on steroid,
Fortunate.
anti-anxiety meds and antidepressants and painkillers. And it was just obscene what they were doing because they don't get it. And so that's what set me off on a research study to try to figure it out. And that's what I did. I figured it out.
I love that you did that. And unfortunately, there's so many people out there in a very similar situation, being
Yep.
told we
And
don't know, we don't understand, because the way the medical system is set up today, it's not looking for the root cause and the underlying issue. And it doesn't have the testing capability. You have to get into the functional medicine, the holistic side, in order to start to understand what are the imbalances, what are the deficiencies, et cetera, what are the toxicities in the body that we need to clear out in order to be able to bring the body back into a place where it can heal. And
yep.
that's my background, is in integrative health. When I got into it, it was after being in a corporate career for over 20 years. And I
Yeah, I
said,
saw that you were with with a hotel chain.
yeah. And after that, when I got into holistic health, I was like, wow, how come I don't know this about my own body? And what if I could teach this to other people? Just the small steps, because people don't know the daily actions they're taking that are negatively impacting their sleep, their health, et cetera, et cetera. And over the long term, that all adds up. And so I love that you took the opportunity to research it yourself and have been able to support your daughter's healing journey. And I presume, she's fully healed now, because we can heal from
Yes.
chronic illness, despite the misnomer out there that you take this pill for the rest of your life. This is as good as it's going to get. That's keeping you in a holding pattern. You're not actually healing there. And we can
Right.
heal. And it's interesting because as an integrative health practitioner, I was writing wellness protocols for people, and some people could follow them, and some
Mhm.
people had the best of intentions and they would fall off. And I started questioning myself as a practitioner. How come these people are getting amazing results and fully recovering, and these people aren't? And as Billy said earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. That's exactly what happened to me. And a naturopathic doctor reached out to me, having seen me on LinkedIn, and said, let's have a Zoom coffee meeting. And I want to talk to you about the world's foremost powerful mind body healing modalities. So, of course, I'm interested. And she starts talking to me
Right.
about the unconscious mind and the programming that happens when we're a young child. And I was like, oh, it's not me. That's what's going on. It's their programming in the unconscious mind that they're coming up against when they can't follow through on the protocol. And we can rewire that. That's the
Yep.
beauty of our mind, is it's neuroplastic. We can rewire the neurology to serve you now as the adult you are and the person you're becoming, versus still having your inner 5-year-old running your life. And let's face it, our inner 5-year-old is not qualified to run our adult life. And so
No, that's
that's
for
my
sure.
journey into this work. And having all of these tools is so incredibly powerful in helping people heal. And the more we connect with people like yourself, the more we can get this message out to the world that there's more than one way to heal, and you can heal.
Some of the modalities that Melissa's talking about is, neuro-linguistic programming. Like, how does your mind actually talk to yourself? Like, how does the program actually work? And how can you program it to actually get the desired outcome that you want? And then hypnosis obviously is learning how to tap into the unconscious mind. And then one of the modalities you teach is timeline therapy. And I bring that up because Dr. Don, you talked about trauma. Everybody has trauma. Everybody goes through, whether it's big T trauma or doesn't matter. It still affects our programming and it still affects how we do life. And timeline therapy, again, goes to the root cause. And it is a conscious, unconscious integration so that you are consciously aware of the programming that you have so that you can rewire it to, again, get the desired results and not sit in the pain. Part of those modalities is because we're working on the higher bodies, right? People think we just have this one body, this physical body. And, we have a mental body, we have an emotional body, and then we have a spiritual body. And people don't realize that your conscious thinking mind, which is the home of your mental body, the thinking body, that it affects your physical body because it is connected to your unconscious, which is your feeling body. So think about, when someone gets a diagnosis, they all of a sudden start thinking about all the things that could go wrong, right? We call that the horror show. And then, of course, that affects their body. And so what we teach
Yeah.
people is that once it's in the physical body, it's already been through the higher bodies. And what we focus on, and of course, we're not knocking the medical system. It's just they don't know any better, right? You don't know, they're not trained in this. They don't know that we need to deal with the mental and emotional bodies. They don't understand that it's something that is unhealed. There's some significant emotional events that are unhealed that is causing this trauma to be held in the body, and it's showing up as dis-ease because we're not paying attention. And that's one of the things we
Right.
teach is pay attention. Where in your life, where in your body do you have pain that you're not paying attention to, that perhaps maybe if you paid a little attention to without just masking the symptoms, right? That's what the medication really is dealing with, is the symptoms. Well, let's dig a little deeper. Let's dig into the root. Like, why did that even show up? Let's rewind the tape. Let's rewind and kind of go back into the system and see, well, what caused this ripple effect to actually turn into this condition that you're dealing with now? Instead of just focusing here, let's rewind back. And that's why we teach these 4 modalities, as Melissa's alluding to, is because we work on the entire system. We're not just working with, okay, let's work with the behavior, let's work with this symptom. Well, let's figure out why this symptom actually came about. Because once we can deal with the root, it's like the analogy of pulling a root. If you pull the weed at the root, the weeds can't come back. Whereas most of us are just, let's just cut the weed off, right? And let's just keep cutting it. Oh, no, nothing, something else is going to show up. Let's cut it a little deeper. Or we dig a little deeper to get to we call that the semi-conscious issues. And that's still like cutting the weed halfway through. If the root is still there, the problem is it's still going to come back. And so that's what we really want to teach people, is that if you can, the first step is awareness. Well, actually, the first step is paying
Yeah.
attention to the pain. Some people don't even do that until it gets so loud, right? That's the first step. Now, when you pay attention to the pain, now you have the awareness. So now that you have the awareness, now what can you do? Now you have a choice, right? We know life is all about choices. So now what choice are you
Yep.
going to make? Are you going to just go and mask it with some medication and just, not pay attention, right? That's what we're saying. I don't want to pay attention to it. Just help me get rid of it. Or are you actually going to dive deeper into learning, well, what is it in your past that triggered this event? What significant emotion event triggered this? And if we can just keep going back and back and back, and the only way to access that is through the unconscious, right? Because it's out of our awareness, then we can now do something to shift it and then heal that trauma. And I know Melissa and I are very passionate about getting timeline therapy into the household of everyone to know that there's other options out there, right? As a police officer, I had to go to therapy. We were mandated to go to therapy to go talk about the traumatic things that we've seen and done. And I always wondered, why do I feel worse? Because we know neurologically, when you talk about it, I literally deepened that neurology and I went through it again. I felt like I got hit by a train. I'm like, why is this helping? Yet the programming says, okay, well, you got to keep going. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. And now I realize, well, the unconscious mind remembers everything that happened. All it needs to
Yep.
do is learn, what lessons did you need to learn in that traumatic event that maybe you weren't able to learn because it was the main job is for it to keep us safe. And the beautiful thing about timeline therapy is we don't have to talk about the trauma. And that's why I was like, what
Yeah.
do you mean you can heal trauma without talking about it? I was like, sign me up. And now that I know, when I train this and I actually teach people how to do it, that's why we're so passionate, is getting this word out there that once you know better, you can do better. And that's really what this
Yeah.
work is all.
Well, it's very similar to what we're doing as well. Is people are surprised. I worked with a U.S. Army sniper who had to shoot and kill a 12-year-old, and for 8 years they just medicated him.
Yeah.
And when he first sat down with me, he said to me, he says, "I can't talk about this anymore." He goes, "I got arrested at the VA last week because I started picking up tables and chairs and throwing them." And I said, "Well, that's okay. We don't need to talk about it." And he goes, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, we're going to fix it." He goes, "Well, how are we going to fix it if I don't talk about it?" I says, "I don't
Right?
need to know what it is, right?
Exactly.
I just
That's the
need
programming.
your mind to reset it." And I said, "So what we're going to do is we're going to get your mind to reset." I said, "Your subconscious operates in the present. So anytime you think about that event, your mind is seeing it in real time. And so it's going, I never use the word trigger. I call it activate. It's going to activate your nervous system because it thinks there's a threat, but it's a
Mhm.
glitch. There's no threat. It's just an activation of an old threat. And your mind goes into an active state. And the only solution that they currently have is to medicate you to block the activation.
Yeah.
And I said, it'd be better if we could go in and reset it so it stops activating it. And that's
Yeah.
what we do. So it's similar to what you're talking about. And when people say to me, I have anxiety, I have post-traumatic stress, I just say, well, those are just symptoms of
Right.
what you have. What I say is, why would your mind be anxious? It doesn't get
Mhm.
anxious for no reason. It's calling you into some sort of an action. The question is the action possible? And chances are it's not. It's an old memory that keeps activating your nervous system. So
Right.
very similar to what you're talking about as well is what we do.
I love that you shifted, you reframed the word trigger because we say in our world we love triggers because
Right.
triggers mean that your unconscious mind is communicating to you. So it's saying that you are ready now to heal this trauma. Because really, what that is your unconscious mind presenting that memory to your conscious mind for resolution because you couldn't
Yeah.
resolve it in that moment,
That's the only
right?
reason
And
I
so
did trigger though, because trigger sound to me just sounded negative and violent. So what I say
yeah,
is it's activating. So it's
right, exactly.
active your system into an action call as
Beautiful.
opposed to and it's just a different way of looking at it. But
Yeah.
so I always have people say, I got activated as opposed to I got
Mhm.
triggered.
Yeah, and that's the programming out there is like, "Oh, trigger, I don't wanna deal with it." I'm like, "No, no, that's a good thing. Let's shift your mindset," and that's actually a good thing because now that means an opportunity for you to grow and heal and evolve, right? And it's all a
Yes.
matter of just shifting people's mindset around that.
Then we have a podcast as well, which we're launching very soon called Clear the Screen. And it's literally, let's take whatever is the horror show that you're running in your mind because you've been triggered or activated, and let's
Right.
clear the screen because we can. And that's what,
Mm.
we all here want people to know is that this is possible and you don't have to be destined to a lifetime of having to re-talk about it over and over again in therapy and being medicated in order to get through life. We can actually
Right.
resolve this working with the
Yep.
power of the unconscious mind.
And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a solution, but traditional therapy has been long and painful, and it really hasn't worked very well. And a lot of the therapists, they've got great intentions, but they're just not very good at trauma because they don't
Mhm.
even understand what trauma is. They teach you to live, manage, and cope with trauma. What I'm saying is, why would
Exactly.
you want to manage it? Why would you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
live with it? Let's
Yeah.
eliminate it.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
because it's serving a
Totally
purpose.
agree.
Yeah,
yeah,
everything's serving a purpose, and if you don't know what that purpose is, let's help you figure out what that is so that you don't have to live with it anymore. We have a
well,
lot of
here's something.
psychologists and medical professionals coming through because they feel that lots of naturopaths are now realizing, and this is science, like quantum physics is not, woo-woo anymore. Like now it's the mind-body connection is a real thing, and people don't realize that. They don't think how powerful that connection is and how our bodies are designed to heal themselves. It's when we
Right.
put the medication in, we're messing with that whole thing, right? We're messing with the process, right? We teach this in our meta health section with, the new Germanic medicine and teaching people how your body actually heals. That when it is going through that healing crisis, that's part of it. Now, if you stop that by putting some medication in because, oh, you don't want to deal with the symptoms, that you're literally blocking the flow of healing. Right? And I mean, I'm not a doctor and I'm not, advocating everyone to go stop seeing their medical go see a professional before changing anything in your however, just know that there's other options out there. That there is
Yeah.
a an easier way to heal
Yep.
yourself without putting all this toxic chemicals in your body in the name of healing. Because really that's not really truly healing, is it?
No, it's managing and coping with it and pausing it. And what I'm saying, like, and you're saying as well, is let's just fix it. I have published 2 studies now, and so I've actually been measuring the changes. So I've been using DNA and also using QEEG to do brain mapping. What I do a pre-DNA test before they go through our program, and then do a post-DNA test, minimum of 30 days all the way up. We just got the results back. It's got it here from a guy he's 27 years old. That's his chronological age. According to his pre-DNA test, he was 30.76 years of age. Now, this guy's had not only his own personal trauma, but tremendous family trauma as well. So he's actually almost 4 years older than his actual age. That's what the trauma is doing to him. And he's only 27. So after he goes through the program, we measure his DNA again, right? And this is all through blood tests. His actual age went down to 23.5.
Wow.
That's how much age he took off. His
Beautiful.
blood age prior was 31.77. Afterwards was 24.6. His brain age went from 29.8 to 26, closer to his age. The thing that was the most impressive, though, was his immune system. His immune system showed that he was actually prior 35.35. That's how much stress. He'd put 8 years of stress on his immune system. Now it's at 26.9, closer to his age. So we've got the studies to prove that we're physically changing the system when we resolve the
Mhm.
trauma. And then on the brain mapping, on the neuroplasticity, I did brain mapping pre and post, and we had our youngest in the study was 15, our oldest was 63. So a wide range of dealing with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, and depression. And going through the entire thing, I brought in an independent guy to run the numbers because I don't want to run my own numbers. So he ran the numbers and he said, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. He says, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe that you're going to get the changes you think you're going to get. I've heard a lot about what you're doing. He says, if you get a 10% change in neuroplasticity, I think that would be a home run for you. He says, I don't know if you'll get 10, but if you got 10, that would be a home run. You know what we got? 45.3% change in neuroplasticity. And
Amazing.
we've that study. That's what you're just talking about. The mind and body are designed to heal. All you
Yeah.
have to do is reset the system and it'll heal.
As long as you create the right environment for it to
Optimal.
heal.
This is what I talk about.
Thank
You
you.
got to get the
Yes.
brain into optimal condition to heal. They never get it
Exactly.
into optimal condition. So
Right.
that's what I do is I get the mind into optimal condition and it'll heal itself.
Dr. Don, I mean, this is a side conversation, but maybe we would love to do a study on timeline therapy and see how, because it takes one session for people to really heal a lot of trauma. Could we do this in our trainings in terms of energy, like, because we are all energy, where energy is blocked in our systems. It's just an assessment as opposed to like an actual study with DNA and blood. But it would be very interesting to combine this and see how that would work on a physical level.
It's just people are blown away. And the reason I did the testing is because, as you know, people say, I feel better. I know I feel better, but we needed a way to measure it
Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah.
times people would say, this just sounds too good to be true.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And
Again, the
like
programming.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then afterwards they go, I feel different, but this is being able to quantify it. And you
Mhm.
can't argue it because it's not my test. It's an independent company providing the pre and post testing. So it's not my own numbers, it's independent testing. And you can't beat that.
Yes.
And I love that
Absolutely.
you worked with a 27-year-old and that 27-year-old is looking to do this. And I can well imagine that the results are even more profound the older someone gets because the trauma's been in their system for longer, therefore causing damage for a longer amount of time. And then what I love sharing with people is it's never too late. You could be in your 60s thinking, oh, I'm in my 60s, it's too late. No, it's not. Our human body is so forgiving when it comes to healing that
Yep.
do it now because, you might be in your 60s and your, age on all of those tests might be in its 70s or 80s because of the life that you've lived. And after doing the healing work, guess what? Maybe it's back in its 50s and you just gained back
Yeah.
10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what this is proving. I had another lady, she was part of our study. She was 58.6 years of age. That was her chronological age. But she was in the cosmetic business. So she took amazing care of herself. She ate right. She exercised. She did everything right. Her pre-test showed she was 56. So she took almost 3 years off of her life by doing really, really, good things for her
Right.
body and for her mind. But she had a lot of trauma. So she goes through the program. Afterwards, we got a 40% reduction in inflammation and the immune system increased by 40 to 50%. But her telomere age went down to 47 years of age, 10 years younger,
Younger.
just by getting the trauma out. And yet everything else she did was still doing well, but she had even more capacity to heal.
It's sad to see the state of the world sometimes because it's almost like people give up. They'll
Mhm.
take someone in a white coat, their opinion more over than, their own internal wisdom because they start questioning themselves. Right? When
Yeah.
people get diagnosis for any disease, that's it. They think that's the end. And we always challenge them like, well, who told you that? Be curious, right? And if you stay in a state of curiosity, well, what else is possible? Have you heard of people, healing themselves from stage 4 cancers? Absolutely, right? That's Dr. Hammer's work. He had 70,000 brain scans of people healing themselves from stage 4 cancer within the right environment. Now, when you're in an environment that's constantly in fight or flight because of all this trauma that you have and all this programming, then of course that's not a very healthy environment for your body to heal. If you start putting all these drugs in, you're affecting the environment. And so if you can
Yep.
clean the environment out, that's what we say with timeline therapy, it clears the space. Now let's bring in the resources that your body now naturally produces for it to now heal itself. And not just on a physical level, on a mental, emotional, and then eventually your spiritual level, right? Because it's all connected. There's so much power up in the quantum field that people don't realize they have access to that they can bring down into this reality. And that's, a bigger conversation. However, people just need to I always encourage people to stay in a state of curiosity instead of a state of fear. Because you can imagine what is going wrong, but you can also imagine what is possible and how it could go right. Because it's a choice either way.
That's what I'm talking about with the DNA. We turn on and off different genes. We're not changing the DNA, we're changing the methylation in the genes. And so when the system goes into fight or flight, it's going to change its system in order to adapt to the fear. And then it's going to turn off certain genes. It's going to increase the inflammation genes because that's a cell danger response. And it's
Mhm.
going to lower the immune system genes in order to deal with the fight or flight state that you're in, but it gets stuck
Yeah,
because the subconscious is operating in the present and it keeps looking at this old data. It's a glitch and it
right.
keeps trying to get something to get done. Chances are you can't do anything about something that happened 20 years ago, but your mind doesn't know that and it's going to keep calling for the action.
That brings us into the whole conversation of epigenetics as well, right? Again, the
Yep.
programming is that, if your mother had breast cancer, you're going to get breast cancer, cancel, cancel, cancel. Or, your father had heart disease, that means you're going to go down that path. And the reality is that we now know that it's less than 5% of all dis-ease has a direct genetic link. Everything else is coming back to the lifestyle that we're living. And as you said, what is our stress level? What's driving the inflammation levels? And if we have our inflammation at a healthy level, then the switch to that disease never gets turned on. However, because of
Right.
high stress, poor sleep, high fear levels, our body's running on limited resources. It can't do everything and it's depleted. Even the nutrition, we're nutritionally depleted. And so the body doesn't have the energy to do everything that it needs to be doing. And our inflammation levels go up and up and up. And then the switch to the dis-ease turns on.
And really, it comes back down to energy and frequency. And, we teach about simple things like neurotransmitters. Remember, like grade 10 science, right? There's, in between the neural pathways, there's a synaptic gap, and that's where the neurotransmitters come out. And depending on what you're thinking and feeling will determine what chemicals are coming out. So, we call them, are they the happy chemicals or are they the crappy chemicals? When you're in fear and you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong, you're sending the message to your body to send out the crappy chemicals, the cortisol, the adrenaline, all the stress hormones. If you can shift it, again, that's what we call clear the screen. Put the love story back up on the screen instead of the horror show. Now we'll send out the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, those happy chemicals that will literally instantly shift your body. That's how instantly that mind body connection is. People think, well, it's going to take a long time. No, it's instant. Think about it. You can't be happy and sad at the same time. Pick a lane. That's why we call anxiety the rumble strips of the mind. Every time you've driven on the highway and you hit rumble strips, it's literally waking you up to get back in your lane because the anxiety is saying, "Hey, you're starting to go off into the horror show. Do you want to come back into your lane and now get back into the love story?" Because you can't play both at the same time. It's one or the other. Now it's a choice. Now, if we can give you an anxiety clearing exercise to clear the anxiety just like that and give you some tools and techniques to help you manage your state, now that's the first step on managing how your body reacts to things. Because We can't control life, right? That's
Right.
that's out of our control. And so the whole saying is life is, 10% of what happens to you and 90% how do you react to it. Well, now if you have some tools to help you deal with life, now you won't get stuck over it. We call this victim island. You won't get stuck in victim island. Now you can have the tools to get you back over here in Solution City and figure out, how do I solve this problem? Whether it's a disease, whether it's stress or fear or whatever that is, how do we manage it? And that's why we call these
Right.
life skills, right? Here, we'll throw you a, lifesaver. A lot of people are just out there drowning in their emotions.
Just
And they
talk
don't
about
know.
it. They
Yeah.
don't know why. Yeah, exactly. And they don't realize that every emotion is serving a purpose. As Billy said, with anxiety, the purpose is to get you back in the lane, get you focusing on what you want. And the definition of anxiety is literally worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, which means whatever we're worrying about, we are imagining. So, are we imagining the horror show or are we imagining the love story? Everything going exactly as you want it to go. Our programming, very often, depending on how much trauma we've had in our life, etc., has most people imagining the horror show. And literally, when we teach them the anxiety clearing exercise, they learn how to instead flip that to imagining the successful completion of whatever it is they thought they were worried about. This is for acute anxiety around a specific event. And that literally clears the screen, and the unconscious mind goes, good, job's done. Now you're focused on what you want. You're focusing on the successful completion. I can leave your body because I don't need to be here anymore. We've shown the
Yep.
unconscious mind that you lived through it, that you survived, and that's its number one job is to keep you alive, and it knows you're alive, and it knows you're focused on the right thing. The anxiety's gone.
Yeah. It's always trying to protect you. And I always talk about anytime you have an emotion, a feeling, or a sensation, your mind's calling for an action. The question is the action appropriate to the situation? And so if you're feeling anxious about something that doesn't exist, that doesn't make any sense. It's an error message. So you've got to clear up, what is your mind anxious about? Get to the root cause of it and then solve it. And then your mind stops calling for the anxiety. Your mind doesn't care about anything good, bad, right, or wrong. It's literally survival based. And so
Right.
if you're
There's no
walking around
judgment.
with a 105-pound backpack of trauma, your mind's not going to rest. It's going to constantly be in a state of fight or flight. And then that's going to affect your physical and emotional health. And you're just walking around with a whole bunch of glitches. Why would you want to do that?
It's like walking around with extra 65 pounds overweight. It's hard on your
Yep.
joints because your body's not meant to carry that much extra weight. And people don't think about the emotional piece of that, that actually is affecting your body too, even though you can't see it, right? A lot of our programming is, well, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. And again, that's just being in our very limited conscious mind and the limited capacity that our conscious mind can actually operate, right? Imagine if we
Yep.
had to tell our heart to beat every second and tell our blood to flow. Like, imagine if we had to consciously do that. We wouldn't get any sleep, first of all, right? And second, we wouldn't be able to function. And we always use the analogy of driving. Remember the first time you learned how to drive and you were like, oh my gosh, like you had to be consciously aware of it. And now you can be sitting there, one hand on the wheel, listening to your podcast, talking to your friend. Your unconscious mind now is driving your car. That's what people don't realize, that we're in trance 95% of the day, i.e., we're in our unconscious mind. So how about we learn how
Yes.
to access it, figure out where, the viruses and the bugs are in there, and update it. I use the analogy again of the phone. We're always updating our phones, our computers, our laptops. What's the first thing the update does? Gets rid of viruses and bugs. Now let's figure out what apps are not, working anymore. Get rid of those,
Right.
put in the more updated apps, and now we have an updated software in our mind. And now our little traumatized little 5-year-old self is now not running our adult life because it's not qualified to do that. Right. And people wonder why they can't get ahead. Like, well,
Yeah.
let's suppose rewind the tape. What were you thinking about recently? Well, yeah, I was thinking a lot about, I can't get my bills paid and I can't this and I can't that and can't all this negative stuff. And of course, it's the
Yep.
law of attraction. And we always joke with people like, it's a law, my friends. We can't believe in a law or not. Right? It's like the law of gravity. If you don't believe in the law of gravity, you'll likely get hurt. It's the
Right.
same thing. It's the law of attraction. What are you putting out there? And a lot of it has to do with programming. We give examples that, have you ever met a person that no matter what happens, they're happy? And then yet there's the other side of the coin where no matter what happens, they're always miserable. And it has to do with the
Right.
filters, and that's where that programming lives, is what all this information coming in, we have these filters in our minds that, are made up of our value systems, our meta programs, or all the things that make us who we are, including all the
Mhm.
traumas and all the, all that kind of stuff. Now, if the filters are dirty, imagine the movie that's going to come out is automatically going to be a dirty, crappy movie, right? So it's going to be the horror show. Now, if we can clear those filters, which is what we do with timeline therapy, as you're saying, get rid of the trauma that's been carrying you, that you've been carrying around. Now we can clear those filters. Now, as the information comes out, now naturally you will start looking for, the beauty of life as opposed to the horror of life. And again, it's just
Yeah.
all conditioning.
Yeah. Your mind will default to the survival before it'll go to its reward. So it's going to
Mhm.
automatically, and then what it's going to use for its response to the current situation is going to use its old data, which is full of, like you talked about, it's clogged with all
Yeah,
kinds of dirt. Right?
right.
That's useless. It doesn't really, it's not bad to have because you learned something from it, but it's in such a high definition format that it keeps activating the nervous system, and then people just keep experiencing these symptoms of anxiety and post-traumatic stress and everything else. I love the way you guys speak. You guys speak exactly the language I talk about, and the good news is that there's ways to fix it. They don't have to
Yeah.
live with it. And that's the message to get out there because people
Yes.
think that, well, I'm just an emotional person. And I always say, why are you emotional? Right? The only purpose of the emotion is to get you into an action. Is the action
Right.
possible? No. So, so tell me a little bit about your program. Like, how long does it take? What's the process that they go through?
So, our Quantum Life Mastery School program is a 90-day training program where we are actually teaching people how to fish rather than just giving them a fish. We can work with people one to one and do a breakthrough with them in 10 to 12 hours to release all of the trauma from the body, rewire their neurology and their programming, et cetera, et cetera. Incredibly powerful work. And it's working with them for that one time versus giving them the skills that they can use for the rest of their life and share with their family members. So that's why we really promote the school so that people have these life skills for use for the rest of their life. Whether they want to be a better parent, a better leader, a better partner, whether, we've had people come through because they want to improve their golf game. As Billy said earlier, we've had nurses and psychologists coming through because they're wanting to uplevel the toolbox of tools they have to work with their clients. So the program is literally designed to meet you where you're at and whatever it is that you want out of this in terms of empowering yourself with these tools. And in 90 days, we take you through multiple courses that are designed to build on each other as we teach you about the power of the three minds, the four bodies, and all of the different tools that we can use to rewire neurology and set you up for success in your life. And for anybody that wants to be a practitioner, taking you all the way through to where you can guarantee your results to your clients because you're literally rewiring their neurology and they can no longer run the old behavior.
Yeah, what the difference with what we do is we are literally educating people on how the system works, how their minds work. We're not just here, well, here's a really cool technique to help you with anxiety. Here's a cool technique to help you with a really, a negative behavior, or here's, a technique to help you clear some of your negative emotions or limiting beliefs. It's so much more than that. Because again, that's why we opened the academy and we wanted to teach people how this works. Like this should be taught in schools. I'm like, my kids are 8 and 9, well, now 8 and 10. My kids know how to manage their state. I teach them these tools. I teach them that they are responsible for their emotions, that they are responsible for their behavior, and they are responsible for their reality. And as much as, our parents, I grew up with very traditional East Indian parents who, in my culture, girls were not supposed to be successful. They're not supposed to be entrepreneurs. They're not supposed to be independent. So my programming was that growing up. And I didn't realize it now. Like, I'm turning 50 this year. I finally realized no wonder every business I wanted to get into never really worked because unconsciously my programming was, Billy, you're not supposed to be a business person. You're not supposed to be an entrepreneur. You're supposed to be, like just check the box and do as you're told. Until I became aware of that, now I could do something about it. And now I've reached financial freedom and I'm doing this work as my passion, retiring from policing because now I got out of my own way. And that's what we teach people. We just teach you how to get out of your own way. We think it's, oh, it's because of this. And that's what I used, it's what we call victim island. Oh, it's because I'm East Indian. It's because I'm a girl. It's because of this. All these reasons that we call being at the effect of life, like life is happening to you, as opposed to over here on Solution City where you're at cause and now life is happening for you. Well, why did all these things happen? What am I supposed to learn in all these things? And now I can teach this to my children that when they go through something traumatic or if they go through some negative emotions, I can ask them, I can speak this language to them and say, well, what are you supposed to learn here? And I can have such a beautiful conversation with them that allows them for them to find what their purpose and their mission is. Instead of me telling them, okay, you need to go to school, you need to become a doctor, you need to do all these things. It's teaching empowerment. And that's really what our school does is teaching people empowerment. And the way to do that is to go within. Right? We have this saying that, in order to get out of your way, you need to go in first. Find what it is internally in your system that's blocking you from you being happy, healthy, wealthy. And let's work on that. And again, let's put the fire out first, which is why we cleared the screen. First, we got to put the fire out. Now we can go into the house and assess the damage and rebuild, right? But we can't do that if your environment, remember, we keep talking about environment. If your environment is not healthy for you to actually heal, we have to deal with that first. And sometimes it means
Sure.
hard decisions. And again, we're here to support people and meet them where they're at. Where in your life do you want to improve? And this work can help you. Whether you want to do this as a business. I mean, I never ever thought this is what I would be doing in my career. Same with Melissa. And here we are. Because now I found my mission and my purpose. And we've only been doing this for a couple years, and yet we're really good at it because we know this is information that we've already been taught. We've already have this inner wisdom. It's a matter of accessing that wisdom. How can you do that? And the key is, and I say, if you want an instruction manual for life, this is it. And it comes complete with an easy button, which is your unconscious mind. If you want to learn how to have an easier life, learn how to access your unconscious mind. And that's what we teach.
You have all the basics. You have everything that you need. You're right. Everything that you've told me, I 100% agree with. So you're definitely on the right track. Even though you've been doing this 2 years, I've been doing it 15 years, and what I've learned is exactly what you've just talked about.
Well,
It's,
apparently, Melissa and I have been doing this for hundreds of years. So, like, we had our Akashic records read, and we've been together in many lifetimes teaching this, which is why it makes sense that when we first met, we were like, "Do you want to just do this together?" And like a year later, we decided to join forces and create the academy together. And everything happens for a reason. There's no coincidences. The fact that we're having this conversation with you, Dr. Dawn, at this moment, it's not a coincidence. There's somebody that's listening that something has been triggered. They've had that aha, that insight that now they're like, "Huh, I wonder if it could be different." And that
Yeah.
sometimes that one little insight can literally completely change the entire trajectory of someone's life, which is what happened for me and for Melissa as well. I'm sure for you with your daughter.
I was just going to say, when people come through the academy, they also get all of the breakthroughs, 5 breakthroughs for themselves. Because as Billie was saying, we're teaching people to go inside first. So we're doing the work for self first. So they get all the breakthroughs, releasing all the trauma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, discovering their soul's most unmet needs so they can determine their mission, their purpose through that process. So it's incredibly empowering for self. And if somebody wants to work with others, they have all the tools to be able to do that.
So how do people get in touch with you? How would they find out about what you guys do, and if it's something that they wanna do? Can you give us your information so I can let them know how to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, our website is Amplify Impact Academy. We're all over the socials. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. If you just search Amplify Impact Academy, we're always doing workshops. We have a lot of online courses, and we do free monthly webinars, literally called Meet Your Unconscious Mind. It's a meet and greet because a lot of people don't even know it exists, or, it's like, how about we just teach you how to, meet and greet your unconscious mind? So, as Melissa said, we build on all our programs because people just need a little bit at a time because our neurology can only hold so much information. And so we do these monthly webinars. We do, bi-monthly workshops. We're always doing stuff. We're very passionate about what we do.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate your time. I think this has been fascinating. You guys talk the same language. You're on the same plane, right? So I believe in what you guys are doing, and congratulations. Just keep doing it because There's
Thank
tons
you.
of people out there that need help. So I can't encourage them enough. If they can't get to us to get to you, somebody's going to help them. But you're
Yes.
talking the right language. So congratulations on all your success so far. Keep
Thank you
on the
so
path
much.
you're on, 100% on the right path. So congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Donna. Thank you for having us. It's been phenomenal. And yeah, we are here to amplify impact. However, we can do that together. We are always open to learning.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for your work, Dr. Don, and love that you've actually been able to put numerical data behind it and are also helping get this message out. Because as you said, we just want the world to know that there's different ways and different options in their healing journey. And the ones we all work with are so gentle and create lasting impact on people's lives.
Beautiful. Well, Melissa, Billy, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of You Must Be Out of Your Mind. And there it is.